Hi there, this is John Drew here of Elevated Planet.
And Jolene Gabrielle, welcome back. Or for those of you new, welcome, welcome. We're so happy you decided to join us. Today we have a few videos in store, and we like to hammer it in, the creative power of the mind and the heart and of connecting. And John's going to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here today. We are going about creating a world of unspeakable beauty, carrying on from last week. When we're surrounded by conflicts and wars and stuff that we see going on, it's more important than ever to start to realize how much power we have to change the narrative. And I think that's part of it is really understanding how powerful we individually are. But not just that, how powerful we collectively are to create that world of unspeakable beauty. And we're going to get there. And what we're doing this time around, we're going to show you three different videos. The first one is the scene setter, which tells us a little bit about what's going on in the world. Comes from, derived from the work of Dolores Cannon. As you may know, I am a big fan of Dolores's work. She was a QHHT. She created QHHT, which is quantum healing hypnosis therapy. And it is practiced by thousands and thousands around the world now. And it is a miraculous way of helping people. But not only just helping people, as she discovered, it's a way of uncovering lost knowledge. And it was incredible. The journey she went on was incredible. But I recommend for anybody who feels drawn to her books to check it out, then please do so. I know that things come to us at the right time. So, if it's not your thing, don't worry about it. But what we're going to do anyway, we're going to start kicking off with the video which is related to Dolores's work. So if you bear with me a second, I am going to get that up and running.
Dolores Cannon often spoke of the importance of understanding our own power as individuals. She believed that each of us possesses an innate ability to shape our reality, to manifest our desires, and to navigate the challenges that come our way. In her work, she encouraged people to look inward for answers, to trust their intuition, and to reclaim the sovereignty of their own minds. But in a world that seems to grow more chaotic by the day, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed and powerless. The news bombards us with stories of strife and conflict. Social media inundates us with opinions and information. And it's all too easy to get swept up in the tide of fear and uncertainty. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that Dolores Cannon's teachings shine brightest. Central to her teachings is the concept of the earth split, a profound and momentous shift in consciousness that transcends mere metaphor and manifests as a tangible phenomenon unfolding before our very eyes. It represents a pivotal juncture in human history, marking the emergence of a new earth characterized by love, harmony, and unity. The earth split is not a distant abstraction, but a palpable division between two distinct paradigms, the old and the new. The old paradigm is rooted in fear, separation, and control, a world where individuals are shackled by limiting beliefs and conditioned to perceive themselves as separate from one another and from the divine. It is a world characterized by competition, scarcity, and conflict, a world that no longer serves the highest good of humanity. In contrast, the new paradigm is defined by love, connection, and liberation, a world where individuals recognize their inherent divinity and embrace the interconnectedness of all life. It is a world where cooperation replaces competition, abundance replaces scarcity, and peace replaces conflict. It is a world where the innate goodness of humanity shines forth, illuminating the path towards a brighter future for all. At the heart of this monumental shift lies a choice that each individual must make for themselves. It is a choice to either cling to the familiar comforts of the past or to embrace the transformative energies of the future. It is a choice to either remain mired in fear and separation, or to awaken to the truth of our own divine nature and the boundless potential that resides within each of us. This choice requires us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities, to release the chains of conditioning that bind us, and to step boldly into the unknown. It is a choice that demands courage, faith, and unwavering commitment to the path of love and light. But it is also a choice that holds the promise of liberation, empowerment, and profound spiritual growth. In today's world, it's impossible to ignore the growing sense of division and separation that permeates our societies. From political polarization to social unrest, the fabric of humanity seems to be fraying at the seams. But what lies at the root of this seemingly insurmountable divide? According to Dolores Cannon and other spiritual teachers, the division and separation we witness are symptoms of a deeper spiritual crisis, an illusion of separateness that breeds conflict, prejudice, and suffering. It's a distortion of reality that blinds us to the truth of our interconnectedness with all life. But why is division on the rise? Who benefits from keeping humanity divided and disempowered? At its core, the forces of division and separation stem from a fear-based mentality, a belief in scarcity, competition, and the need to protect one's own interests at the expense of others. This mentality is perpetuated by those who seek to maintain control over the masses, manipulating them through fear, misinformation, and divisive rhetoric. By keeping humanity divided, these forces can more easily maintain their grip on power and resources, perpetuating a cycle of oppression and exploitation. They thrive on discord and conflict, sowing seeds of distrust and animosity among the populace. Behind the curtains of mainstream narratives lie hidden agendas, power structures, and systems of control that manipulate the collective consciousness for their own gain. These shadowy forces operate in the shadows, orchestrating events and shaping perceptions to serve their interests. They thrive on fear, ignorance, and division, exploiting humanity's vulnerabilities to maintain their dominance. But who are these puppeteers pulling the strings of power? They are the elite, the ruling class, the oligarchs who wield immense influence over politics, finance, and media. Through their vast wealth and influence, they manipulate governments, shape public opinion, and control the flow of information. Yet, despite their seemingly omnipotent grip on power, they are not invincible. Their power is derived from our consent, our acquiescence, our belief in their authority. As Dolores Cannon often emphasized, we must reclaim our sovereignty and refuse to be enslaved by fear-based narratives. It's time to see through the illusion of their authority and recognize that true power resides within each and every one of us. But despite their efforts, the truth remains unchanged. We are all interconnected beings, bound together by the threads of universal love and compassion. When we recognize this fundamental truth, we transcend the illusions of separation and division, opening our hearts to the inherent beauty and diversity of life. At our core, we are sparks of the divine, embodied souls with infinite potential and creative power. Yet, many of us have forgotten our true nature, lost in the illusions of separation and limitation. It's time to awaken from the slumber of ignorance and reclaim our birthright as sovereign beings. But how do we tap into this inner power? How do we transcend the limitations of the ego and align with our highest purpose? The journey begins with self-awareness and self-realization. We must look within and confront the shadows that lurk in the depths of our psyche. By embracing our fears, insecurities, and limiting beliefs, we free ourselves from their grip and step into our true power. Moreover, we must cultivate practices that nourish our spiritual growth and expansion. Meditation, self-reflection, prayer, these are powerful tools for connecting with our higher selves and accessing the wisdom of the universe. Through these practices, We dissolve the illusion of separation and align with the divine flow of creation. As we awaken to our true nature, we realize that we are not mere spectators in the drama of life. We are active participants, co-creators of reality with the universe itself. Every thought we think, every word we speak, every action we take sends ripples out into the cosmos, shaping the world around us. The key lies in conscious awareness and intentional living. We must become mindful of our thoughts, emotions, and actions, understanding that they shape the reality we experience. By cultivating love, compassion, and gratitude, we raise our vibrations and contribute to the collective awakening. What is most important is that we are aligning with the vibration of New Earth, and as we do so, we have to shift physically to this realm. That is the law. Moreover, we must recognize the power of unity and collaboration. Alone, we may feel powerless, but together, we are an unstoppable force for positive change. It's through community, connection, and solidarity that we amplify our impact and co-create a world aligned with our highest ideals. The law of attraction states that like attracts like, which means that if you
Right. Okay. Stop share on that, because we have to stop that one midway through, unfortunately, because there's a lot of really good information, and I will connect it up to the newsletter so you can see it in its totality. It is quite powerful, and it's still very much on message. When we did our piece last week, which was about conversations with God and Neil Donald Walsh, then what we are saying here, it is very much in alignment. And it's this idea that the shadow aspects have been keeping humanity small, enslaved, but to a point where we don't even realize what is going on. We've just been fed this narrative for so long through the channels that we trust, which would be typically mainstream media, government, and all the likes. But then this idea that everything, there are these puppeteers, if you like, who are in the background that are actually controlling things and trying desperately to keep us small. But they understand how powerful we really are, because as we heard from the conversations with God narrative, everything is about consciousness. And group consciousness is powerful and can create worlds of unspeakable beauty or ugliness. Now, we know which one of those we're going for. We know which ones we pinned our colors to the mast for. But, the question is then because this is a challenge really from a mainstream perspective. And I do relate very strongly to mainstream think, because it was only 6 years ago that I was there and considered this as, woo-woo spirituality. I didn't get it at all. But I've had 6 years of immersive study, if you like, and I've realized how wrong I was, how left brain, and how blocked out I was to a wider truth. And the thing is that it's so liberating once you start to go down this path. And those who are already on the journey, it's very liberating. You start to realize that we have so much power than we realize. And as a group, we have enormous power. So whilst these shadow aspects are out there trying to manipulate, trying to divide us, trying to show us how we are all individual, right? And we're individuated expressions of a divine consciousness. But nevertheless, we are all individuated expressions of the one consciousness. That's the key thing. It all comes back to the 12 universal laws, the law of divine oneness. Everything is connected, and everything is connected. We are all connected. And once we start to join our power together, it becomes enormously powerful. And the reason it becomes so powerful is that we are focusing on the high frequency energies of the likes of love, compassion, joy, all the good stuff that everybody surely would choose to live in, rather than fear or falling for the narrative that is constantly being fed. But it's understanding, it's acknowledging the fact that we are being fed something that does not serve us and actually does not have to be our reality. We have a choice. So, Jolie, can I bring you in for your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And that's a very powerful statement. If you think about it, we have a choice, because oftentimes in society, you have to think about it when you're programmed and conditioned. There's the learned helplessness that kicks in because your critical thinking skills have been suppressed. So through remembering or working as a collective, guess what? You have access to this information that other people have. And it even manifests itself with that hundredth monkey theory. You've heard of that?
Right.
Where if a hundredth monkey cracks the coconut and he's like somewhere else in the world, every single monkey all over the world now knows how to crack a coconut, right? It's like a
Right.
critical mass of energy that gets rolling that if you're not careful, will also incorporate you. So that's why we say move towards that unspeakable beauty and that light. And it starts with you. Boom, here we are.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. And another thing, I'll tell you what, I was looking at the other day. We were talking about last week about the Nag Hammadi texts, right, which were the ancient texts that were discovered in the 1940s. But then there were also the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were uncovered around the same time, right, in the 1940s to the 1950s. I think 1946 to 1956, they've uncovered, I think it's like 972 different scrolls. And within that, there was one thing that is the oldest known version of the Old Testament, for instance, right? So that is something. But then there is also a scroll called the War Scroll. And this is interesting. I'm going to put a little something on the newsletter about this. And what it talks about is it talks about a time in the future, and bearing in mind this was written, over 2000 years ago. It talks about the sons of darkness and the sons of light gathering for one final conflict at the time of the change of the ages. And the question was then being asked, what would we choose? Would we choose to perpetuate the cycle of darkness and war, or would we choose to create a new cycle based on love, compassion, kindness? Now, and all those high frequency energies, because of the recognition of oneness, the unity consciousness that actually creates the power, right? Where we truly start to find out we are not just individuals. We actually are a collective consciousness that can come together to create something pretty special. Now, the question is, of course, that was just put out there as being a time in the future. Now, we're going through a change of the ages at the moment, which is the first one for 2,160 years, I think, is the cycles between the Piscean era going into the Aquarian era. But this is interesting, right? So this is a time of the change of the ages. We are seeing more rising conflict. So is the time that they were talking about this was the Essene community in Qumran, who actually wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, is what they were foreseeing the era that we are in now. And that's what I'm suggesting. And it's not something that is intended to be scary, because we're honored to be here at a time of transition, right? This is the new earth transition, and we have a choice. Now, for those who don't get it and are stuck in fear, I totally understand. And that is your journey and that is your truth. But what we want to be is a bridge for those who are interested to be able to step across this bridge and see if it's for them. And if it's not, then take a step back again. But nevertheless, create a bridge so that people can see if this journey is for them or not. Because as Gregg says in this next piece, actually, and this is very good, and we spoke about this earlier in the week, didn't we, Jolie, saying one of the things he talks about is he's not trying to force his opinions and ideas on other people. That's not what it's about. It's planting seeds, because we honor everybody's journeys as being unique to them. And therefore, whatever feels right to you is right to you. But if we plant seeds out there and at some point in the future, it makes more sense to you, then you can come back and check it out. So, what do you think, Jolie?
I think that's correct. And this theme we have today with our live is about seeds, because as we go into the third, you can see how your energy, once you plant those seeds and you decide what kind of energy you're putting into those seeds matter. It all matters, you know, just like the video we just saw, I like to call the voice. Your thoughts, your actions, your words, your deeds, it all matters. So we really need to start to dig in to who we are. It starts with us first. I keep reiterating that, and then it reverberates out into our environment. So
Yes.
I'm excited about this next video with Gregg Braden.
Yes. Yes. You're right. As you said before, Jolie, it is an inside job. And the seed planting, I hadn't thought of it in that way, but yeah, that last video will really bring that back into play.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So we had Gregg on last week as well, doing his piece about the indigenous prayer, which was the prayer for rain, which meant it turned from drought to deluge in the space of less than 24 hours. But that was interesting because the key thing there was really about, it's a bit like when we talk about law of attraction and manifestation. It's not about asking for something, because by asking for something, you're actually pushing it away from you. What you have to do, and again, it comes back to those Nag Hammadi texts. Actually, let me just read that bit to you, because it was like the point of all that was that under the King James version of the Bible, the New Testament says, "Ask and you shall receive." But that's a mistranslation. As they found out through the Nag Hammadi texts, once it was retranslated from Aramaic and Greek, what it actually read as was, "Ask without hidden motive," was the first section. Ask without hidden motive, which takes us into that Buddhist wisdom of not being attached to the outcome, which is important. "And be surrounded by what you desire, be enveloped by what you desire, that your gladness be full," which is saying that you have to feel like it has already happened, and not just think it, but just like, using all five senses. And Jolie, you used this within the meditation last week as well, and it's beautiful because it's immersing yourself in the feeling of already having it through all your senses. And that is what brings it to you. And the same thing is true for prayer. So Gregg taught us that this week. Now, this one is the gift of the blessing, which we touched on, I think probably back in December, we touched on this briefly. And the gift of the blessing, why is the gift of the blessing important right now? Well, if we're right about this circumstance where we've got the war scroll from the Essenes, and that turns out to be this is the age where we see the sons of darkness facing off against the sons of light, and that is the last big conflict of that nature. So if that is the case, then we are likely to see escalating circumstances that create the need for this gift of the blessing, because it's about forgiving, it's about letting go. And Gregg himself will explain this in more fully now. But that's a kind of key thing to bear in mind. It could well be that this is going to be important as it goes forward, as an important thing to have in your toolkit. So do you think we should dive in there, Jolie? Anything you want to add?
No, not at all.
Okay, let's go into the gift of the blessing with Gregg.
So how do you apply this gift of the blessing? When an event hurts us, typically, we may look at the parameters of that hurt. I'm going to use our example of Rwanda because it lends itself well to this. In Rwanda, 3 things happened. The Rwandans lost their lives. Soldiers took their lives, and I was left behind to witness. Those become the opportunities of places where the blessing may be applied. And something amazing happens when we bless the things that have hurt the most. For example, what happens when we say, "Bless those Rwandans who gave their lives so that we may know ourselves in their passing"? Our world's different now that they're gone. We have to make sense of that difference and what that means. That's the first step. Second one is the one perhaps it may be a challenge for some people. What if we say, bless the soldiers that took their lives? Bless the soldiers that took the lives of the Rwandans. This is where it's important. It doesn't mean we agree with what they did, that we consent or condone what they've done. It is our acknowledgement that they are playing out a role that is sacred in nature and part of the one. And although we may not understand it in this moment, it may not make sense to us, it is part of that one, and we're simply acknowledging that unity. How may we transcend the polarity of this world if we continue to respond to the polarity through the eyes of polarity? If we continue to respond, only blessing what's good. We bless the Rwandans, the soldiers. What about them? Well, forget those guys. They're the ones that took their lives in the first place. That's the thinking that led to this experience. It takes a powerful, masterful being to find a place within themselves where they can bless that which has transpired, which has hurt them deeply. And this is one of those places where the words may fail. This is one of those places where you must experience it for yourself. That's the second opportunity for the blessing. So we bless the Rwandans that gave their lives so that we may know them in their passing. And now we bless the soldiers that took those lives. The soldiers now know themselves in the taking of a life. That's a hard one for some people. And the last one, it's the one that's been left out in the West, is us. Bless us in the witnessing. We're the ones that have to make sense of it. We're the ones that are left behind. And those three codes of blessing, I believe, hold such potential for healing. And I've seen it in my life, I've seen it in the lives of others, and they're so subtle. Please don't be deceived by the subtlety. And please bear in mind that when you bless, you're simply acknowledging that what you have experienced or witnessed is a part of the one, and that's all. As you sit down with your children in front of the 6 o'clock news, and your children see the outrageous events that are transpiring now at the close of this cycle, shift of the ages, the 0 point moment, where we're being pushed to the extremes of emotion and who we believe we are through outrageous events, some of them that cause a lot of pain. I ask the question, what choice really do we have other than to rise above the polarity that hurts us in the first place? The other choice is to remain a part of the polarity and to be angry and to judge. And this is where discernment comes in. I believe discernment is a powerful tool to recognize what we no longer choose to have in our world and then to make it so by rising above that polarity. Do we turn our backs and walk away from the things that hurt us and disown them? Or is there another way? Can we find a way to rise above the goodness or the badness or the rightness or the wrongness? Can we discern what we no longer choose to have while still being there in a form of love and support? And the gift of the blessing allows for that possibility. Now, clearly, I would never choose to persuade or convince anyone of anything. These are simply possibilities that I'm outlining. I'm fleshing out our knowledge of history and the possibilities of what our lives may mean to us through tenets and codes and texts that were taken out of our common modes of history and circulation 1,700 years ago. And what I invite people to do is take this possibility, and if it works, if it makes sense, and if you find a place for it in your life, then you've got it right this moment. Embrace it and live what it means. And if you hear these words and they make no sense to you whatsoever, the magic is you cannot unhear them. So I'll invite you to place them into a file folder somewhere in your memory called possibilities, and to hold on to whatever belief systems have brought you into this moment, because they are serving you very well. And the moment that one of those belief systems fails you, rather than struggle trying to hang on and make that old belief system work. Let it go with grace. Bless it and let it go. Come back to this file folder called possibilities and allow for what this code of compassion and blessing may mean in your life.
There you go. So that's Gregg. Yeah, I love that. I do think that the key is forgiveness. And Jolie speaks to this pretty well. And so I will allow I'll bring Jolie in to discuss this in a little bit more depth. But it is very much about the need to rise above the drama, to be able to see it through a different perspective. And it isn't about condoning the action of others necessarily. It is about releasing yourself. That is what it does for you. It enables you to clear, and at the same time doing it from a place of compassion and kindness and love, because you have to be, what was it Gandhi used to say? You have to be the change that you want to see in the world, right? And as Gregg says, it's, if you respond with anger, if you respond with hate, because you have seen something that is really deplorable, and I have done recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I saw something which really did, from a mainstream perspective, it does fill you with despair to look at the images. But at the same time, to respond, as he says, through the lens of polarity, just gets you back to the same problem again, and you keep perpetuating the cycle. So therefore, you need a tool in your toolkit that enables you to be able to get into this and release it as forgiveness. And the one thing I would say just before, the best example I've seen of this in terms of the TV stuff, and we talked about this for several weeks, but The Shack, right? The Shack was somebody who went through something of an absolute extreme and was confronted with this forgiveness thing. And, it was beyond him to a large extent, except he got there in the end because he learned and he understood. But I always recommend that movie. It is really deep. It is one which will live with you. Probably reduces to tears a couple of times if you're anything like me. But it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It's awful in some ways, but it's beautiful on a net value of the whole movie. Forgiveness, Jolie, tell us about it.
Well, because when you are failing to let go, it creates what I like to call a spiritual constipation, right? And you don't have any room to be as expansive. So to receive and become abundant and prosperous is difficult. And I understand there are people out there like Ebenezer Scrooge, and that energy can accumulate wealth. But when you have that sort of situation, you're trading one thing for the other, right? You may have all this money, but because you're crotchety, your relationships kind of are trash. So we live in a world nowadays where you can have it all. And how does that work? We're no longer working at the golden rule. Isn't it called the platinum rule now? It's kind of like treat others the way they want to be treated,
Right.
Treat others, and respect people's boundaries so that your boundaries become respected. But as I always like to give the example to my children, being unforgiving and resentful and hateful is like drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. When you're unforgiving, you are becoming a toxic person. No one ever said you have to forget. No one ever said you have to welcome that energy back into your life. But forgive yourself for making that choice. We talked about the choice, right?
Right.
And then forgive that other person for entangling in the karma, because you don't want to have to experience this again. Because if you don't learn the lesson, guess what? It kind of follows you. Therefore, once you release and let go, that energy is allowed to dissipate and open up more room in your vessel.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the things that came to mind as you were saying that is that one of the things I've come to learn through the work of Robert Schwartz and a number of others as well is about life path planning, which we do before we are embodied into the physical vessel for this journey as immortal spirits having a human experience. And I know, again, that's not a mainstream perspective. That's my reality. That's my truth. But we plan on the other side, and we plan interactions, and we plan our most painful interactions as well as our most loving interactions. And we do it because of growth. So I think it helps with the forgiveness thing. If you think, well, actually, I am responsible for this because I planned it for myself, for my personal growth. Now, I know this may be several levels beyond mainstream, but just planting seeds again, as Gregg says, if this does not work for you, then just file it in that folder. And if your version of reality starts to fall apart for some reason, rather than trying to paper over the cracks and put a square peg in a round hole, look for a new answer, right?
Mhm.
And it's having that courage to acknowledge the fact that your version of reality could be wrong. But that's one thing that I learned over the last 6 years, is that my version of reality was so wrong. I've had to shatter it so many times but it's beautiful. I love it because it's taken me from that very left brain kind of mentality to something which is open and balanced, I feel, right? And I've never been happier in my life than I am now. So, it feels right. I love doing this. I love making these connections as we do. I love working with Jolie. I mean, this is just a beautiful, and again, my life path plan, I'm sure Jolie and I, that was when we were supposed to intersect in February 2020. Yeah, 2020. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. And that began a journey which was supposed to happen. Brilliant. Anyway, so yeah, I love that. And I think that is a powerful tool in the armory, and we will just kind of keep that in the blog posts and the likes within elevatedplanet.life. But I think the last one that we're coming to is going to be the one that is providing us with a bit more science, because one of the things that I put in the invitation is that we start to back this stuff up with science. And there is so much more than what is in this 6 minute, 40 seconds of video. But it kind of tells you, because when you listen to the evidence that backs this up, very scientifically done, research, what do you call it? Rigorous research on this to determine what was going on, and then repeat the exercise. And so it wasn't just taken at face value, it was done properly. And there's so much more than this, but that's what we're going to show. Anything you want to say before we go into Lynne?
Just one thing I want people to remember is that forgiveness means freedom. And the more you forgive, the freer you become. So we're ready for Lynne.
Fantastic. Thank you. And yes, we'll do a share on that.
If you've ever felt we needed greater peace or an end to the wars right now, then do we have the Peace Experiment show for you. Today I'll be talking with Lynne McTaggart, the amazing investigative journalist, best-selling author, and the creator of The Power of 8. That's just what I want to talk with her about today, about how we can use the power of 8 and group meditation and intention to stop the violence, end the war, and help humanity round this dangerous critical bend. Can we use group intention and group meditation to stop war?
Well, I've done about 10 peace intention experiments, and we've seen some amazing results. But every intention we've done, we did one to lower violence in the most violent place in America, which was St. Louis, Missouri, and the violence lowered in just that area that we focused on, that neighborhood, by 43%, compared to the rest of St. Louis, where violence continued to go up. We did it for 2 provinces in southern Afghanistan in the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And those 2 areas experienced the greatest lowering of violence. And this was the stronghold of the Taliban at the height of the war with America.
Yeah.
greatest lowering of violence, according to NATO statistics provided to me by a German general, the head of the combined forces. It showed that compared to everywhere else, that area experienced the greatest lowering of violence. So we keep seeing it over and over and over again.
If prayer from one helps, let's put a group together and see what that looks like. And then understanding that you didn't need maybe a massive critical mass to make a difference.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking about big things like ending wars or curing cancer, or just little things? And secondly, what would happen if lots of people are thinking the same thought at the same time? Does that magnify the effect? So it was pure curiosity that had me write my next book, called The Intention Experiment, after that first book in this area called The Field. And the Intention Experiment was also this invitation to take part in these experiments. And what I started doing in 2007 was, every so often, I would ask one of the scientists I knew working at prestigious universities like Princeton, Penn State, University of Arizona, University of California, and elsewhere, to set up an experiment or to monitor an experiment and measure it afterward. I would, meanwhile, invite my readers around the world, and there were lots of them by then. My book, The Field, was in 30 languages. Or I would ask an audience, if I were speaking in front of a group, to take part in this experiment. So we've run 40 of them to date, Michael, 36 of which have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects. We've done everything from trying to make seeds grow faster, to purifying water, to lowering violence, as I mentioned, to healing people of things like post-traumatic stress disorder. And of those 40, 36 have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects.
You're on a roll, so I don't want to interrupt you, but which one is your baby?
They're all my babies. I don't have a favorite, but I guess my favorites are, number one, early on, the seed experiment, because that taught us a lot, and it answers a question you just asked me before. With that experiment, I was working with Dr. Gary Schwartz of the University of Arizona, a noted psychologist. He set up an experiment with his laboratory where he put together 4 sets of seeds, of 30 seeds each, labeled them A, B, C, D, sent me the photos of them. I was in Sydney, Australia, doing a talk at the time, and I decided to do this experiment with my audience of 700. So we chose the seeds. Let's say we chose seeds A. We didn't tell the scientists which ones, but we did the experiment and then just told the scientists, we're done. That was the cue to plant the seeds. They planted them. 5 days later, they measured them, and it was only after they measured them that I unblinded the study and told them, oh, it was seeds A. Lo and behold, it was seeds A that grew significantly higher than controls. And we did this 5 more times with different size audiences, one of which was an audience over the internet. So thousands of people around the globe, only 100 in a small experiment in Rhinebeck, New York, and so forth. Audiences of different sizes in South Carolina, Dallas, Los Angeles, and over the internet. And every single time we got the same outcome. So that taught me, as each experiment has taught me, something new, that size of audience doesn't matter. All you need is a group of any size. And of course, I love that experiment because I was 8,000 miles away from the target, so was my audience. You know, target's in Tucson, Arizona. I'm in Sydney, Australia with the audience. And also, I'm just sending intention with the audience to a photo of the target, not even the target itself, a symbol of the target. So that also taught me about the psychic internet that we create with group intention.
There you have it, Lynne McTaggart. Yeah, a big fan of Lynne's work, and that was just a, as I say, less than 7-minute extract from an interview which she did with Michael Sandler. The fortunate thing about that was that I recorded it within 2 days of them actually releasing that, because immediately after I'd actually recorded it was taken down by YouTube, which is, I don't know why they do that, but Michael Sandler knew it was on the edge because they were talking about the war. They were talking about the peace intention behind it. But for whatever reason, YouTube decided that people didn't need to hear about peace intentions, and they pulled the video. But by then I already had it downloaded. So it was just an extract from a YouTube video, which is no longer available. But I think it's powerful. I love the fact that, being 8,000 miles away, it's a packet of seeds. You have a photo of a packet of seeds, and you send your intention to a photo of a packet of seeds, and it comes up, and 6 times in a row, different sizes of audiences. Some are online, some like live audiences. And I saw one, and Jola, you'd have seen this last week as well, the one that she did from Florida with the scientist, a brilliant man who measures consciousness through his little Sputnik device thing that he's got. But he had this lead going into a bottle of water, right, which had like this diode dropped into it, which measured all the different aspects of the water. And he would then leave the room and gone for doing whatever he was doing. Meanwhile, in Florida, for 10 minutes, they sent an intention and they sent love to a bottle of water. They could actually see it on the screen. And the entire audience of, I don't know what it was, maybe 300, 400, 500 or something, sent that intention. And for that 10-minute spell, when he came back and he did the research retrospectively, and he had no idea what time they'd done that, but it exactly mapped. That 10-minute spell exactly mapped with this really positive difference that lasted for the 10 minutes. But once they start to move their attention elsewhere, it went back to its normal trend. Now, that is the other side of the world. And, okay, what's the big deal, right? But the big deal is we can affect so much more than we realize. This tells us that we have this psychic highway that goes on, and it's all around us. It is all around us. And this is what I love, what Jolie does for us at Elevated Planet, is because that is what she's done for a living for the last few decades. It's basically who you are, Jolie. It's not just what you do, it's who you are, right? But to be connected in. And I think that's so powerful, because it tells us that when we start to come together as a group consciousness, this is not just woo-woo nonsense. This is just what we showed you there. There is so much evidence, that it just becomes. In fact, I read this thing. In fact, I wrote it down at the time, actually, because I thought it was worth reiterating. And it was, effects of the intention experiment. Scientists have proven from a composite database from Lynne McTaggart's experiments around the world, the outcome is what physicists call a 7 sigma event. And what that translates is the chance of that happening is 1 in a trillion. Now, your skeptics might say, oh, yeah, but there's a 1 in a trillion, right? It could have been that one. That means that, it's not actually proving something. But clearly the evidence is really strong. But Jolie.
Yeah, the evidence is out there. And that movie, The One Field, I feel if you really have doubts or you want to see science and spirituality in that intersection, that movie is really groundbreaking. You talk about The Secret. A lot of people complain like, okay, well, thoughts, but there takes work. Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. And it talks about how you are creating your environment. It's so important for us to remember that we are. And a lot of the viruses in the system or the glitches are coming from outside of you. The programming, the conditioning, because at your core, who you are is spirit. So you desire to connect. You desire to come together and spread love. That's who you are at your core. So any type of glitching to that is where you want to dig, because that means that somebody has put a seed there that doesn't belong to you. So it's time to start gardening, and meditation and creative visualization is so important for that. So we've really laid the groundwork, John, for people to realize how powerful they are if they begin to focus the energy of their heart, their mind towards a goal that benefits not only themselves, but others.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's a really good point, actually, because there was another point that I wrote down as well at the same time, which was about the power of the heart, because again, it comes from the one field. And I will put a link to the one field on the newsletter because it is important. You know, it's 2 hours and 5 minutes, but honestly, it'll be 2 hours and 5 minutes of your life well spent if you can bring yourself to actually do that. But they were making the point about the power of the heart. Looking at the wrong page. Excuse me a second.
Well, you know, Gregg Braden, I think he is also involved in that heart math, which has been around
That's
for
right.
a while. And they have done the research on what, you know, what it looks like in cities when people are focusing in a loving way.
Mm.
It's very interesting.
Very interesting. And that was what I was looking for. The magnetic field of the heart is about 100 times stronger than that produced by the brain, right? That gives you an idea. And this did come from the Heart Math Institute. And yeah, the power of love is something that really comes out strong in that the one field movie. So how are you feeling about it then, Jolie? Do you think it's that time?
Yes, it is that time. Now, remember, love is like, you know, it's a very powerful emotion. But at the top of Hawkins' pyramid is joy. And the heart lives and it's alive. And when there's joy and laughter and camaraderie and connection, that's when that heart is at its strongest. So today, we're definitely going to go into a meditation and creative visualization, not just for ourselves, but we're going to take up where Lynne left off and go forward in sending out loving vibrations and joy into not only the world, but into your environment, your people coming forth from you. We're going to call that in, and then we're going to move it out into the world. Okay. So are you ready, John?
We are just about to share screen. Give me a second here. And there you go. Meditation waterfall.
Fantastic. So as always, please put your feet flat on the floor. For those of you laying down for the first part of this meditation, keep your feet flat. Your palms face up on your thighs as you breathe with the rhythm of your body. What does that mean? Rhythm of your body means however your body begins to relax and be comfortable and make you feel safe. Creating a rhythm is all about creating safety within your body. And then once you have caught your breath, the rhythm of that breathing, you command your heartbeat to sync up with your breath, which then begins to bring all of the systems and the organs in your body into balance. Now, from a heart-centered space, I want you to go ahead and ground your energy, because we're going to ground into Mother Earth from a space of love. So as this natural fiber or element, it could be earth, air, fire, water, quartz crystal, tree trunk, rope, you see that being generated 6 inches in diameter, moving through the center of you, all the way down through the chair, through the floor, down into the lithosphere, through Mother Earth, down through the asthenosphere, rooting itself, your grounding cord. You're safe and allowed to root yourself into the nurturing reality of Mother Earth and her unspeakable beauty that she has to share for you. You want to pull in your aura to be 1.5 feet around you, and your higher self above you. And your soul architecture is together. And now we begin. We want to clean off that grounding cord with this golden rose-shaped scrubbing bubbles. And while we do that, we're going to go ahead and put a golden sun above our head, filled with joy, as we open our crown like we would the lens of a camera. And we're going to bring that first beautiful golden sun of joy down and fill up the grounding cord, cascading down. And as that beautiful golden sun of joy goes down the grounding cord, scrubbing bubbles fall away into Mother Earth, turning into positive creative life force energy for anyone to use. Follow that visualization. See those golden rose-shaped scrubbing bubbles pop off as that beautiful cascading golden light of joy moves down all the way down to the very tip of those roots. Take a deep breath in, exhale, and you put another, visualize, create, and imagine another beautiful golden sun above your head. And this one is joyful. Joy, once again, is filling it up. As we bring this golden sun down, we let this fill up the whole bottom half of our body. We let it fill up our toes, all the way up into our feet, coming up our legs, into our knees, working out any disease, any illness as it moves up our thighs, into our reproductive organs, our sacrum, our spine, coming up into our stomach, colon, moving out any diseases. It moves up into our sternum. We put another golden sun above our head filled with joy, and we fill up the whole upper half of our body with this joy. And we open our heart chakra like we would the lens of a camera. And we just allow for unlimited amounts of joy, showing itself as a beautiful golden etheric cloud, just moving down into our crown, filling up our entire bodies and moving out into our aura layer, and then moving out into our environment, and then moving out into the universe. So I want you to see all of those that you love partaking in this beautiful joy that's palpable. It's this golden, cloud-like, etheric energy that's warm and soft and loving. And this joy automatically touches you. It tickles you. You're laughing, and all the people around you are laughing. And then the city around you is growing, sharing. Crime is less. People are more loving. Prices are lower. Paychecks are higher. And I want you to see all this beautiful energy moving out into the universe and encompassing and engulfing yourself and all of those that you love. And this energy is just growing, and it's growing, and it's spreading. And it's reaching all of the four corners and all of the spaces and places where there's destruction and death and war and all of these things that are absolutely a bad nightmare illusion. Cover that with this beautiful golden energy of resilience, of love, but most certainly of joy and of laughter. There's enough to go around for everyone. Let go, open up. You're expansive, forgive. Allow for that energy to fill you up. So everywhere you go, you're spreading joy. Joy. You love yourself so much so that everywhere you go, you're spreading joy. See that. See that. Hold the space. Hold the space. See your mom, your dad, alive, as well as in being in another dimension, partaking in this gold, alive, as well as maybe passed on. Send this energy to the ancestors. Send this energy to the future you, to your progeny. Send this out into the universe. Send some to the angels. All of the things that you believe in that are good and are true to you. Engulf them with this energy, this unlimited amount of joy that comes in from the universe. Open up and share that. Because when people are joyful, they don't have any time for hate. We don't have any time for that when we're busy spreading joy, making others laugh, making others feel good. That is how we elevate the planet in the highest and best way. So hold this space and this energy for the day. It's however you created that beautiful, golden, etheric, joyful energy. I want you to hold that, see that, close your eyes and see that in your aura, see that in your body. And anytime you need to share that at any moment, it could just be as simple as just commanding your heart open and send a little of that energy over there. And it doesn't have to, it's simple. So take a deep breath in, exhale, hold the space, see that beautiful energy throughout your entire environment. Take another deep breath in. And now we're going to stop. We're going to close our crown. And we're going to allow for that beautiful, joyful energy to go back up into the ether. And we're surrounded by it. We're filled with it. Take a deep breath in. If there's anything open like your brow or your hands, go ahead and close them. Take another deep breath in. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Beautiful. I sat through that meditation with a big grin on my face.
Yeah.
I feel the joy. It was fantastic. And it's, I love that. The prices are down and paychecks are up. We need
Yeah.
we need you in charge of the Federal Reserve Bank.
So we need to keep that meditation rolling.
But it is beautiful because even the image of that, it just kind of like fills you with that happiness thing. And this is what I've always perceived for Elevated Planet. It is about, it's not just about talking about these things like which some people might regard it as a little bit dark because, we're talking about the times that are coming up. But this is just a state of preparedness. Not just that, but actually providing a solution for us going forward where we can take constructive steps to put ourselves in joy and create that world of unspeakable beauty. This is how we do it.
That's right. Fantastic.
Yeah. No, thank you, Jolie. That was beautiful. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to listen back to that one time and time again because every time I need to find that smile.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And so we might as well wrap it up at this point. We've done well for timing, and I think there's been a lot of really good information. Naturally, the newsletter will go out tomorrow with the recorded version of this live event. And I would like to thank our audience for being with us today. Thank you to our community for joining us. And for anybody who latches on to the recorded version and you're interested in this, contact me at johndrew@elevatedplanet.life if you want to go onto our distribution list. And certainly our YouTube channel, which is Elevated Planet, is there for you to subscribe to as well. And I would also ask that if you do like this video, then give us one of those thumbs up thingies. I know I never normally ask for this because, I'm not really good at, I always forget about that. And send us comments as well. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whatever, you're entitled to share whatever you feel is needed to be shared. So your comments are always welcome, whether it comes to me at johndrew@elevatedplanet.life, and I will also field those for Jolie as well for any messages for her. And there we go. That's it. Simple as that. And we will work towards coming together in group consciousness to create our world of unspeakable beauty. And I think that's a great way to finish, don't you think, Jolie?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, we will see you in a week's time, and newsletter goes out tomorrow. Have a fantastic week.